globally, on average, if we lose 40% of our forests, we will have reached a point of no return where there is nothing we can do to save ourselves. And on a daily basis, we'll be experiencing natural disasters. I said 40%, right? But in Nigeria, we've already lost 60%. 60. We've lost 60% of our forests due to charcoal production and other development. So we need this more than any other country.
Indeed, deforestation is not only dangerous and harmful because it destroys the forest, uproots animals and disrupts the habitat, but also leaves the population vulnerable to harsh weather conditions. And so, there are experts who have argued that the day the last tree falls, life on Earth ends. That may not necessarily happen anytime soon or at all, but the statement emphasizes the need to protect and nurture forest covers. Many thanks and welcome to today's edition of Enviroscope here on West Africa Democracy Radio and broadcasting on 94.9 FM, Dakar, Senegal, and online on wadr.org. This is a 30-minute program where we discuss issues relating to the environment, agriculture, land exploration, and climate change, and every other matter that concerns our planet, Mother Earth. I am Abdullahi Hassan, your anchor. Today's edition is a continuation of the series on forest cover, but this time focusing on Nigeria, a country with an abundance of forests spread across the 6 geopolitical zones. According to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization FAO, 9.9% or about 9 million hectares of Nigeria is forested and has 382,000 hectares of planted forests. But the change in forest cover between 1990 and 2010 cost the country an average of around 409,000 hectares of forest or 2.38% annually. In total, between 1990 and 2010, Nigeria lost 47.5% of its forest cover or around 8.1 million hectares. For more on the menace of deforestation in Nigeria, Usman Umar is standing by.
Nigeria, like most African countries, blessed with tropical forests according to scientists, is fast losing this precious gift that plays a vital role in protecting and balancing the ecosystem. It nourishes the earth by exchanging and refreshing the ozone layer, thereby minimizing environmental or climatic hazards. But in the last decade, precisely almost 300,000 standard-sized football fields of tropical trees are removed every year in Nigeria. This projection adds to the 10 billion trees removed across the world annually. However, many reasons are responsible for this never-ending trend. These woods, for some people, especially in rural areas, is the only source of energy, while for many, it is and remains their only source of income and sustenance. For farmers, clearing fields for farming means getting rid of trees, even when they are economic trees. And then there is timber logging, which despite having legislation, continues to prevail with support from foreigners who in turn export the woods for expensive furniture and woodwork. Across the 6 geopolitical zones of Nigeria, the southwest region remains most cultivated. In 2021 alone, 240,000 acres of forest land were lost according to the NGO Global Forest Watch. This is equivalent to 59 million tons of carbon dioxide emissions. Dr. Mukhtar Aminu Kano is the Director General of the Nigeria Conservation Foundation.
We have to plant 300 million trees per year in order to stand still. And we have been cutting this number of trees for so many years. So this will give you an idea of the enormity of the tasks that is ahead.
For his part, Femi Obadun, Director of Forest Management of Ondo State, Southwest Nigeria, more needs to be done.
Once the last tree falls or fails, the last man dies. There's no gainsaying about it. It's not an exaggeration because we all live on plants. We live on the forest.
At the moment, environmentalists are calling on the government, relevant agencies and stakeholders to enforce laws that will prevent deforestation and encourage reforestation.
Usman Umar with that report. Remember, Our focus on today's package is forest cover protection with an aerial view on Nigeria. According to research, forests in Africa's giant contain 1,085 million metric tons of carbon in living forest biomass. Regarding biodiversity and protected areas, the World Conservation Monitoring Center said Nigeria has some 1,417 known species of amphibians, birds, mammals, and reptiles. Of these, 1.2% are endemic, meaning they exist in no other country, and 3.5% are threatened. It also reported that Nigeria is home to at least 4,715 species of vascular plants, of which 4.3% are endemic. But what are the overall consequences of deforestation, the driving factors, measures, policies and reforms to possibly be implemented in addressing the situation? My guest, an environmental conservationist, Dr. Ibrahim Duba, speaks of saving the situation by planting 200 million trees. Now, when I heard 200, I was amazed and imagined how long it will take to achieve this goal. Dr. Duba is, however, and most certainly on top of his game. He begins with an assessment of Nigeria's forest cover.
Out of the 20 most impacted countries by climate change in the world, only 4 are not African. And do you know the contribution of Africa to the global emission? Only 3%. 3%. So we are the most impacted in the world. So we've decided that what this means is that if the world is coming to an end, Africa will die first. And it also means that nobody is coming to save us. We have to save ourselves. So we decided that, okay, there are so many things you can do to mitigate climate change. But in our corner, we'll do what we are known for, what we already know how to do, and that is tree planting. And that is the reason why we are in this fight.
One good thing that tree planting will do actually for a country like Nigeria, even seeing that last state was badly hit by flooding that killed nearly 1,000 people, displaced over 4 million, according to the government, is to improve its forest cover. Do you think, or prior research, see that forest cover in Nigeria is badly hit?
Yes, seriously. You know, globally, on average, if we lose 40% of our forests, we will have reached a point of no return where there is nothing we can do to save ourselves. And on a daily basis, we'll be experiencing natural disasters. I said 40%, right? But in Nigeria, we've already lost 60%. 60. We've lost 60% of our forests due to charcoal production and other development. So we need this more than any other country. And like you mentioned, we've seen the effects of that in flooding. The floods have become a yearly thing now. A yearly thing. You know that they are coming. It's certain they are coming. And myself, I've been to settlements where the governor has resettled our people from where they were to another place so that they will not be affected by floods in the future. New buildings were erected, which means these people have lost their farm produce, they've lost their homes, and this is due to, partly due to the forest cover that we've lost. So we're already seeing the effects of that. Earlier I said Africa would die first. Well, if Africa would die first, the first country that would die is likely to be Nigeria.
And why is that, Doctor?
Because we've already lost 60% and we are losing every day. Because our people, their primary fuel for cooking at home, it's charcoal. They don't have a cheaper alternative, and the government has not evolved a cheaper alternative for them. And that is why we are not planting our trees in the villages, because the forests that we have in the villages, they have no ownership. So we are planting our forests in the cities, in schools, in the mosques, in the churches, and in developmental areas like estates. So that's what we're doing. And the fact that the government has not been able to give our people another alternative is that the destruction of trees will continue. But
Now,
that's not limited to Nigeria. Globally, we are losing 10 billion trees every year.
so one concern would be, where has this federal, state, and maybe local government and stakeholders failed? And what do you think should be done immediately to end this cycle?
Many people are trying different ventures, different initiatives to fight the climate change. Some people are proposing biomass for charcoal. So when our people finish farming, the waste product, they will turn that into charcoal, like the stalks from our farms, the corn stalks and other things. People are now using that now. But the technology or the skill is not easily available to our people. So that is that. And the gas, some people, even those that were not using it before, are using it now. However, the predominant population is still living on that charcoal. And that is why we don't want to plant trees where people will just come and cut them. We want to plant trees where they are well protected.
But on the other side, also, you have those, like I said before, who largely would depend on this as a means of living. That is, those who what do you call them? Timber logging. Like, this is primarily all they do.
Yes.
And we also understand that they sometimes have foreigners, or should I say international, those who really put enough money in this. So has the legislation failed, or there has to be now more policing of this forest to not only end timber logging but deter people from doing such?
Yes, we have two types of timber logging. There's one that is legitimate. They planted their own forests for the purpose of logging. You understand? And there are criminal elements who also go into our own forests, to destroy them or to steal from the trees. For those ones, there are legislations. The legislations have not worked because there are Chinese, citizens who collaborate with some of our people to do this thing. Because in our forests we have some species of our trees that are very good for furniture and other things. So we still have that problem. About legislation is not the only way to stop this, because we already have laws. You understand? However, the laws have not been effective. I used to have a colleague who was very, very good at policing these things, including charcoal harvest and other things. He will seize them, he will prevent people from doing it, and then suddenly he fell sick and died.
That was Dr. Ibrahim Duba, an environmental conservationist, and we have been talking about Nigeria's forest cover. If you are just tuning in, this is Enviroscope, a 30-minute environment program here on West Africa Democracy Radio, Dakar, Senegal. So I want to take us back to your project of planting 200 million trees. Now, 200, that's quite big and might take a lifetime. So tell us, how do you plan to get this done? Who are those that you target, that you intend to bring on board in achieving this laudable task?
Yeah, it can take a lifetime, but we are hoping that our scope is 200 million. Our timeline is 10 years. That's what we are trying to do. So that after 10 years, we can even be more ambitious. Well, the first 2 years, I have 10 hectares of land in my home state, where we are going to plant the first 200,000 trees. This will be like the nursery, like the base plant, the parent plant. Each plant from this 200,000, we are going to multiply by 10. I don't know if you know the technology of air layering, the technique. where you can multiply one tree by 10 or even 100. I do that a lot, and I've trained youth on how to make money using the existing trees. You just cut a tree and you plant. However, before planting or before cutting, you are going to scrape off the skin, the bark, and apply soil around where you peeled off. And after 1 month or 2 months, you have a new growth of roots. So when it's rooting, you just cut off that branch and you plant it, and you have a new plant. This way, you are saving years in planting from seed. You understand?
I was going
So
to
what we
ask
plant,
if they are economic trees or just trees basically to
yeah,
provide
yeah,
shelter.
yeah, they are economic trees, because what we realize about these trees, economic trees, is that they do everything that these ornamental trees are doing. They provide shelter, they provide food, and they are beautiful. So you can use them as ornamental trees too, You can see how many trees will be replanting, will be propagating from this garden of the school. So that's what we'll be doing for the next 7 years or 8 years after distributing to partner institutions. If the first 2 million is subjected to air layering, we have another 20 million, and the 20 million trees will also be air layered to 200 million trees. Because we want, wherever we have these trees, we'll do geotagging. We already have a website, 200milliontrees.com, where we'll be keeping a tally of these trees, so that wherever they are, we'll know how many we've planted. Because some of these trees will not be planted by us directly. They'll be planted by our partners or people that we inspire. They will tell us that, hey, we've planted so many number of trees. Here is a geotag, and we confirm, we add it to our account. That's how we want to achieve it.
Very well. So, Doctor, like you rightly said, some of them will not be done by you, but with partners or people that you've inspired and trained. And
Yes.
this shows that eventually your calculations or the roadmap for achieving this might really not go as smooth as planned. So, what are some of the challenges you envisage, and ways or measures that you've also considered in dealing with this, just so that you stay on course?
Yes, thank you. We want to help people to make money from. For example, a school where we said that other than your school fee, we will help you to make money, to make about 10 million every year outside your school fee. That's the private schools now. We know that people are motivated by money, and they are going to do it properly. You understand? So that they will maintain the orchard, because next year they know that they are going to make 10 million naira. And these frameworks, the schemes I've designed, and I've started teaching some schools. I've been something I've been experimenting for the last 8 years, since 2015, and they've worked. Like this air layering thing, how it's going to work locally for us here, and the kind of trees that are good for such measures. So they've worked. We've experimented, tons of experimented. I've lost trees, I've lost money doing the experimentation. So we want to, that's one way. I know that, like you mentioned, there are ways that we may get disappointed, we get derailed in the future that we don't know yet. But these are some of the measures we put in place that, look, if you are doing a nursery business, we want to add, we want you to add fruit tree planting to your business, so that you make more money, and we'll teach you for free. Here is how. You understand? And if we make it a movement of tree planters in Nigeria, and people have developed that identity, of planting trees, then people will be seeking. There will be enough demand around the country where people will be seeking birthday trees to plant, or just to beautify their houses. In Nigeria, we want to introduce a law where if you are building any new building, it will be required of you to plant at least 10 trees. If you don't plant, the government will plant for you and charge you. Yeah. So yes. So we have many measures like this, but like you said, we've never planted 200 million trees before, so nobody will come out confidently and tell you that yes, we are going to do it, and we're going to do it at this time, and it's going to be, foolproof.
And so, what
Yes.
is your advice to relevant stakeholders, government at state levels and at regional level also, on how better to incorporate tree planting, not just as climate mitigation measure now, but adaptation also?
When people talk about climate change, they usually talk about three things to make it sustainable. They talk about the economic aspect of it, the social aspect of it, and the environmental aspect of it. And what you've asked now is not just the environment, but the other two. And what I would tell our stakeholders, uh, this tree planting does not only help the environment. Even before we had environmental crisis, we had trees and they were serving a purpose. So let's assume the environmental crisis is solved today. Do we still need trees? Yes, we do.
That has been my guest on today's package, Dr. Ibrahim Duba, an environmental conservationist. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Enviroscope, WADR's Environment Program. Remember, today's package was on forest cover protection with a particular emphasis on Nigeria. Follow our discussions on Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service, and stream live on WADR.org. I am Abdullahi Hassan. Until next time I come your way again, do well to take care of the environment. Cheers.